Hola, and welcome back to our Tim O'Brien author study on Cinco de Mayo. What we're going to do, of course, is a quick little review of our strategies, our concrete physical details, allusions, our metaphors, our intentional sentence fragments, and of course, we learned last week our rhetorical questions. Now, all of these, we're calling them O'Brien's writing tools, but essentially what they are is they're rhetorical devices. And what they serve to do are three main things. You're going to persuade your readers to consider a topic from a different perspective. Maybe give them a little bit different angle, different way to look at something they haven't thought about before. Rhetorical devices can do that. They're going to encourage or provoke a rational argument. And these rhetorical devices may be getting at emotion, but ultimately it's about that rational argument in the end, and their goal is to elicit an emotional response towards a given perspective or action. So these purposes are what rhetorical devices do, and that's what rhetoric is about. So today we're going to learn another rhetorical device, repetition. And as a rhetorical device, it can be a sound, word, phrase, or full sentence repeated to emphasize its significance in the entire text. And typically, something to bear in mind is in day-to-day speak, we don't generally repeat ourselves. We tend to move on to new subjects. So using repetition in writing is both stylistically appealing and works to convey the message. And the way it does that is it can enhance the beauty of a sentence. It can stress the main point of significance. Imagine a teacher is trying to give you some homework and they want to make sure you understand. What do they do? They're often going to repeat that a couple of different times, and it can create a nice balance in the sentence. And all of these things work together to get at, as we talked about the last slide, that rational argument and using language to your advantage. So we're going to learn about a few different types of repetition. Repetition of sounds. These are things that we've probably heard before. And we're going to learn two types. Alliteration is the repetition of sounds at the beginning of words, such as Sally sells seashells by the seashore, or Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. That's alliteration, where you have that same sound at the beginning. Assonance is that repetition of vowel sounds. Do you like blue? That ooh sound is repeated. These two we've certainly seen before. So what I'd like you to do is write two sample sentences about bacon, because I was thinking about bacon and I kind of wanted to cook some up, or food in general, whatever sort of food. One of those sample sentences have alliteration, one of them have assonance. Alright, our next use of repetition is with words or phrases, and we're going to learn one real specific one here. It's called anaphora. And that's repetition of the same word or group of words at the beginning of a clause, sentence, or line. For example, this is probably one of the most well-known. It's from Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief. It was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. So each of these sentences starts with it was, and that repetition at the beginning, that anaphora, really makes this opening to the book stand out. Another example is from Langston Hughes. We've read a little bit of him earlier this year. He writes, I am the farmer, bondsman to the soil. I am the worker, sold to the machine. I am the Negro, servant to you all. I am the people, humble, hungry, mean. So that I am. Again, establishing a very powerful, very strong beginning. You'll notice that Tim O'Brien uses that quite often in his writing. So I'd like you to write a couple of sentences using anaphora. Try to repeat that same opening phrase to rope the reader in. All right, repetition of syntax. Syntax, of course, is sentence structure. And this is something O'Brien does frequently. And this one is actually the hardest repetition to find, because sentence structure repetition doesn't have to be exact. There can be some nuance in it. But let's look at an exact one first. At the end of On the Rainy River, Tim O'Brien says, I was a coward. I went to war. two very short, simple sentences. Subject, past tense verb, object. Right next to each other. That's a very clear, simple syntactical repetition. Another example, this is a little bit longer. A true war story is never moral, it does not instruct nor encourage virtue, nor suggest models of proper human behavior, nor restrain men from doing the things men have always done. Here's a good example here right in the middle. If a story seems moral, do not believe it. If at the end of a war you feel uplifted, or you feel all bit of rectitude has been salvaged from you, then you have been made victim of a very old and terrible lie. These two sentences have that same structure. They have an if-then structure. There is, and then at the end, again, more clear syntactical repetition with the sentence structure. There is no rectitude whatsoever. There is no virtue. So this syntax that O'Brien uses, it really does help create that balance when he has these same types of sentences. And then when he goes and he breaks those sentences and has a new pattern, whether it's an intentional sentence fragment or it's a very short sentence within long ones, those tend to stand out a little bit. So mark up on this where your repetition is, and see what you can do with that note sheet. And then repetition of story. O'Brien does this quite frequently. One of the big examples is Kurt Lemon's death. And he says, this is in the first chapter, I'm 43 years old now, and a writer. And the war has been over a long time. Much of it is hard to remember. I sit at this typewriter and stare through my words and watch Kiowa sinking into the deep muck of a shit field, or Kurt Lemon hanging in pieces from a tree. And as I write about these things, the remembering is turned into a kind of re-happening. Kiowa yells at me. Kurt Lemon steps from the shade into bright sunlight, his face brown and shiny. Then he soars into a tree. So he has this story early on in the book, and then he comes and repeats it often, numerous times in the chapter How to Tell a True War Story. And so what I want you to do on your note sheet is think back to the book. What other stories, besides this Kurt Lemon death, has Tim O'Brien repeated? And then take a moment to try to analyze why. Why is that particular story having been repeated a couple of different times? So there you have it. Repetition. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed it.